Good evening and welcome to, I screwed that up already. Good evening and welcome to the 4 o'clock news at 5 o'clock. Or is it the 5 o'clock news at 4? Or maybe it's just none of those things. And maybe it's Pi Day Friday. Hey, everybody, happy Friday. And I hope it's a happy Friday for you. There's all kinds of interesting news in the news. So we'll get to that as we move on. Good afternoon. I am Dave Rush, Senior Instructor at Total Seminars, and this is Drama. Dave Rush, Ask Me Anything. We get together once a week, Friday at 2 o'clock Central Time, to talk about ways to use the Raspberry Pis to continue our study for those of us who are still locked in and down and unable to do training in our normal methods during these lockdown periods. And of course, we do more than that with Raspberry Pis, but what are we doing today? We're doing that. And it's kind of sort of. Sound is whiskey smooth. My back channel is returning the favor every time we do one of these with Mike. I generate a some kind of analogy for the quality of sound. So thank you very much, back channel Scott. And speaking of Scott, I am not alone here in these endeavors. I have working the back channel today, as ever, my partner in Pi, Scott Jernigan, senior editor, author, musician, medieval fighter, and many other hats. Works for Total Seminars. He is deep in the process of working with Mike Myers right now as they write the next generation Network Plus N10008 book. And he is... from our discussions, our brief discussions, I don't even give him, he's my direct boss. Mike is my boss, and there's other people ahead of me, but I report directly to Scott. And for a worker and boss relationship, I don't get much time with him. So I catch him, at our regularly scheduled weekly meetings when they occur, crisis, if he has to contact me with a question or me with him. But otherwise, our contact is we check in 30 minutes before these AMAs, or I work the back channel with him and Mike. And that's about all we get to do these days because he and Mike are working so diligently on generating this book. And if you're not familiar, and I'm not going to do the whole process with you, we've done this a little bit before, but writing a book is not just sitting down, researching and typing out the contents, and then maybe even have them fact checked. There are layers and layers of editing and returns and comments and more research, and it's an incredibly time-consuming process. And Scott wakes up and he starts writing, and I don't think he stops to eat. Maybe they feed him intravenously just before he collapses in bed at night. But then he gets up and plays Civ for a couple of minutes, crashes again, and then starts it again. And he's doing this 8 days a week. And as a result, he and Mike will generate an amazingly good, as always, CompTIA study guide. Or it's more than a study guide, of course. It's a learning book. And then they take a couple of minutes of breather, literally a couple of days after the book is finally done. And the book is never done. But when that great grand day that they can say, I don't have to do anything else in this book, would take 3 days to recover and then start working on the video course that goes with it. So busy, busy, busy. So Scott is working the back channel. I see him posting some notes here in the YouTube feed. You're welcome to ask him questions. He may or may not be able to get back to you. If there's something really important that you think you need to contact Scott with, there are two ways to do that. One, just say, at Dave Rush or DR, whatever. I'm David Rush in this thing. Please ask Scott to check my message and I'll do that. Or what would be much more time and cost effective, that was kind of weird, is for you to contact either him or myself or even Mike Myers directly by email. Oh, I didn't do all this prep. There we go. And that way, if you've got a longer question, if you don't want to post in the chat feed, if you are not watching this live in real time, then you can't add anything to the chat feed, right? So contact by email. I'm Dave Rush, so I'm Dave R at totalsem.com. You can also catch me at my personal address if you like, drushtx at Yahoo. Scott Jernigan is, of course, Scott J at totalsem.com. And if you want to talk with Mike Myers directly, I just saw an email that I was included in on where somebody from the Wednesday Mike AMA sent him an email with a really good and interesting question and comment. But you can catch him at Michael M, because he's Michael Myers at totalsem.com. We all steam. Catch us on catch me as Blood Rush TX. Catch Scott as Scarheart. And Mike is Senor Pepe, P-E-P-E, 2 words. And that's different ways to contact us. Well, that's been our show today. Hope you had a good time. No, maybe not. Okay, I got more stuff. We got a fun day. It's an easy day. I looked at this material, and I've had a couple of days to kind of work on it. I had some opportunity yesterday to do some multitasking at the office, doing this task and waiting for things to happen so I could work on show prep. And then I needed about 6 more hours of show prep this morning. So I did. I got up at 6 and cranked out another 6 hours. And as I looked at all that, I said, you know what? 6 hours of show prep generates an hour or so of presentation. And we get close when I do those hour things. So I've backed it down a little bit. Could have done 4 hours of prep, huh? Well, this is a production of Total Seminars. Nobody knows us by name except you guys who join us here. Total Sem is the company name of the where Mike Myers is the face. Everybody knows Mike Myers is popular author and millions, literally millions of books sold to help people prepare for CompTIA various certifications. Same with Scott Jernigan. Scott's written a number of books. He's quite famous for his IT fundamentals books. Mike and Scott together for A+, Network Plus, Security Plus, and some other tomes that bear their names. I was going someplace with that. I just feel it's such an honor, such a pleasure to work at Total Seminars and to work with luminaries like Mike and Scott. So I'm really digging this, and the fact that they let me have these 2 hours to get together with you and talk Raspberry and talk certifications is a real joy. So this is an AMA. It's a DRAMA. And the goal, therefore, is to ask questions. And of course, you can't talk to me today because it's a one-way kind of thing, but you can write your questions in the YouTube chat feed. Love for you to do that. And again, if you can't, shoot us an email, shoot me an email. Oh, that was kind of weird. I just learned that Microsoft Word does things that I didn't know you could do. Put your cursor in the ribbon, where all the different categories of things you can do are, and use your mouse scroller and it will scroll left and right. So this is a production of Total Seminars. It's Mike's show. It's Mike's channel. He just lets me use it, and I really appreciate that. We get together every Friday, 2 o'clock Central Time till 4 o'clock Central Time. We take questions typically for about the first hour or so, and I do news and tricks and traps and things like that. And then the second hour, we try and do some kind of a project. We are doing some kind of a project today. Last week, get ahead of myself here, we did USB cameras and talked about how to capture and view video on them. I had a really bad USB camera. Sorry about that. And I was embarrassed. I've used that in very dark places and it came up great, but does not work very well in light places. I bought a brand spanking new camera, same make and model as the one that you're watching me on now. So for future USB work and when we do USB cameras on Pis and things like that, then I got a better camera to work with in addition to the one that you're watching me on. That's not the only camera that I bought this week. We'll get into that in part 2. So last week we did USB cameras. Today we're using the cameras that are manufactured by Raspberry Pi. They've got 3 generations of them and some sub-generations. We'll break this guy out of the box. Show you how to install that onto a Raspberry Pi. It's got a ribbon cable and a ribbon connector. And then we're going to use 2 of the 4 utilities that is included with Raspberry Pi OS to capture and manage still images and to capture and manage video. It's pretty good stuff. Iced tea with a lot of lemon in it today. It's really good. My missus took my big gallon jug, her big gallon jug, and threw it out in the backyard because it's Texas, where it's been sunny and 100 degrees for the most part for the last week and a half. And that just makes brilliant sun tea. I keep saying drama. This is dramas, because even though you don't see his face, it's drama and Scott. He's here and he's working hard back there, multitasking, writing, and keeping a half an eye on the channel here. I'm just moving my way all through my notes, getting some of this stuff done early, and then we get right on to questions and work on that for a long time. I have said this many times in the past. For many of our labs and experiments, you don't need a Raspberry Pi. You can use any other Linux box. And that was true for last week. All the utilities we used last week, like FS Webcam. Yeah, Webcam FS, that was the name of it. You could do that on a Linux, just on any other Linux distro, an x86 distro, or anything else. Today is going to be one of those exceptions. If you want to do what we're doing today, we're using commands and cameras and computers that were all designed specifically to work together with each other. So today's project, you need a Raspberry Pi. You don't necessarily need a Raspberry Pi camera. There are some compatible models out there. And I'll give you a little bit of info on that as we go on. But it's good stuff. I have a slide for this. So let me talk about this for a sec. As many of you who are here live know, we operate a little web server on which I keep copies of the documents and pictures and PDFs and outlines and notes that I use to do these dramas, AS. And I opened it up on Friday morning for the show, and you're welcome to the day of the show, and it stays until I collapse at night, sometimes midnight, 2 o'clock in the morning, whatever it is. And I updated it today with last week's show and today's show. It's very current. And so I invite you at any time to head over to pirsquare.zapto.org. I'll put that in the chat feed in a second, so you don't have to remember it or type it down. And it's an ever-growing page. It needs work. I was looking at it today, and I realized after you click on a link, when it shows that the link has been used before, that the color of the link, at least on mine when I use the Brave browser, makes it very hard to read with the background that I'm using on the primary splash page. So I'm going to change that in the next week or so. But for today, it is usable. Let's go with that. Hey, Scott beat me to it. Scott posted the link. I was just about to do it. Thank you, sir. At 2:12, Scott posted the link to our pirsquare.zapto.org. And if you didn't know, if you're watching this on the archive and you're new to the crowd, by the way, if you are, please do two things. Like and subscribe. You'll get our notices once a week. And we don't make any money off of it or anything like that. It helps other people find these. I have every day, every time we do a show, I create a time index of what got talked about, when it got talked about, and things like that. We're a little behind on posting them, but between the likes and that indices, people can find, hey, how to use Raspistill on a Raspberry Pi. Raspistill is one of the two commands that we're going to be playing with to capture still images. Not surprising, right? Okay, move that into the background, then move that in the background, and that's done. We can go away with you. All right, the last thing before we start into officialdom, two worthy mentions today. One, happy Juneteenth. Signed into law 24 hours ago, and suddenly 24 hours later, it's a federal and state holiday. A lot of feds and a lot of state facilities didn't have the time to plan for manpower and adjust it, and are not taking the day off this year. Many are. If you get to take advantage of that, if your company or organization or home is celebrating Juneteenth, terrific. Worthy of note for us, Juneteenth is a Texas holiday. It's a Texas observed date and commemorates when Texas received notification of emancipation. It happened quite some time after the Emancipation was actually signed. So I'm not real clear on why this is the date. Emancipation was signed months ago, but here we are. So happy Juneteenth. And the other worthy news item, Claudette. Claudette is a churning storm out in the Gulf of Mexico right now, gathering strength. It doesn't look like it's going to get into a full-blown hurricane, but it's bringing bad weather to Louisiana, certainly, Alabama, southern Alabama, central Georgia. So if you're in the path of that, you know what to do. You've experienced these before. You are in our thoughts and prayers. As bad weather go, it should pass quickly, but they're talking about heavy rains, possible tornadoes. So please be careful. Okay, that completes intros. Let's find out who's joined us, Johnny. Wait, we don't have a Johnny. I always thought it would be cool to be a game show host. I mean, after you learn the game and you get it down rote, that's got to be one of the easiest paychecks on the planet, right? All right, Tullowwood popped in, quarter till the show. Alan Duggan's here. Hey, everybody. And Scott welcomes everybody at 1:56. Ask me anything with Dave Rush. Don't forget to include yourself, Scott, with Dave Rush and Scott. You're still answering questions in the background when you're feeling the ability, waiting for the port to open. David Mohan, we kind of answered your question from your show last week. I have much more information to further answer that TDMA versus CDMA question. So stick around. And port 443 is open on pirsquare.zapto.org. In fact, it's the only port that is open. 80 gets redirected to port 40. Oh, that's what I was going to port 443. Yep. Lights, camera, action with 2 minutes to go. I did turn the lights on at 2 minutes. Speaking of Pi cameras, that's part of Dave's presentation today. Yep. Ooh, I super scrolled already. Ooh, there's lots of good beef to work on. You guys have been busy while I've been doing intros. Is this Q&A only about Raspberry Pi? It is focused on Raspberry Pi, David. We open the topic to anything except religion and politics. We'd like it technical, but I'll take CompTIA questions. If they get too far out in the weeds, I'm going to just write them down and answer them in future, pass them on to Mike or whatever, because again, our focus here is how do you use Raspberry Pis either in their own right or as a tool in studying and for CompTIA or demonstrating CompTIA objectives, things like that. But yep, ask me anything. Patricia Grace is here. Greetings, right on the dot. There we go. Andre DeGoyer's here. Nice to see you, Andre. Everybody here is here from the Discord, all the regulars. We'll post the Discord stuff shortly. Feel free to do that anytime, Scott, if you're listening. Tullowwood, yeah, this all works keeping Mike and Scott from joining me on. Wow. Yeah, I mean, they're working so hard. I know you're having kind of a fitful start with WoW. This too shall pass. They'll get more time as it goes on. Jason Helms is here. Can't speak for everyone, but I'm doing fine. Ooh, what did you just do there? There we go. Daily IT Solutions. Good afternoon, Siegfried. Yes, I knew that was you, but maybe everybody else doesn't, right? So it's a good idea. Gabriel's here. Hey, Gabriel. Let's see. Okay, that's Patricia's contact that she's passed on. So Gabriel Taylor, welcome to Dramas. Thanks for telling me. Sorry, I just had 47 jokes run through my head that precede thanks for telling me. We'll let them all go, eh? Good to hear. Scott, how's things going your way? So if you want to ask a specific question that's addressed to Dave Rush, proceed it with an @ or a £, and then just start typing in David, and you'll see all the Davids that are here. If you want to communicate directly a message with somebody else, hit the £, or @ sign, and start typing in their moniker as it appears in here, and you'll do that. And when I see those @ signs that don't have my name after them, I just slide right past. You guys are by all means, welcome to have your own conversations, but I ignore other people's conversations. Do it. Andrew Hutz, what's up, Dave? What do you say, Lionel? Oh, okay, thank you. And don't forget, up on top of the chat, there are two options for you. We have the 3 vertical dots, which I have done massive amounts of research in the last couple of weeks, and I am utterly convinced that it's called a kebab. But you can go in there and you can toggle timestamps. You can also toggle the chat feed to be its own separate window if you like. And then to the left of that, you have a pull down menu for top chat or live chat. If you select top chat, the system goes into a reasonably aggressive auto censor mode, and you won't see posts by what the system, what YouTube thinks might potentially offend somebody somehow, some way. So if you want to see every post that happens, then switch that to live chat. And that makes Scott and me, to a lesser extent, because I'm doing this, the sole banhammer manager. So if and when he sees things that are untoward, they will go away. I've seen him do it before, but it happens very rarely on our show. Okay, yes, I can, David Mohan, but I'm not going to do a ton of these generic non-pie stuff because your questions get deep and they can be very time-consuming to answer. So at 2:07, David Mohan asks, can you explain what an archive bit is in relation with full differential and incremental backups? I'd also like you to go to our archive page and do a search on, I'd use the word differential in there, or full, or backup. Mike has a full 40-minute, 35-minute presentation on that, and we can talk specifically about that. Let me take a quick look. I'm going to take 20 seconds and see if I can get the link. There we go, back up. I nailed that. I am going to put this in the YouTube chat feed right now. Feature backup schemes. And this is at current time, 22 minutes past 2 o'clock my time. So by all means, watch that. Okay, so here's the short version. When a new file is created or when an existing file is changed, Windows automatically places an attribute on that file called A, or the archive bit. And this is used by backup software to identify if this version of the file has yet been backed up. If it sees the A, it says either that file has or has not been backed up, or maybe it's been backed up, but I'm supposed to back it up again. So whenever we do a full backup, it doesn't matter if the A bit is set or not. Full backup backs up every file that you select by directory, by the entire disk, whatever. And then if there's any A bits set on those files, they get cleared. In an incremental backup, incremental only backs up anything that has the A bit. So I've just did a full bit, nothing's a full backup, nothing's got archive bit. I added 10 new files today and I changed 10 existing files. So there's 20 files that have A bits on them. So if I do an incremental backup, those are the only files that get backed up, and incremental clears the A bit, so it won't reback them up tomorrow. So we do that every day for 6 or 7 days a week. And let's say at the end of the week, there's a system crash and I've got to do a restore. Well, the restore process is restore the full and then restore in sequence every incremental backup that was made. A differential backup says I do a full backup and I clear all the archive bits. Next day, same example, 10 new files, 10 existing files, that get changed. I'm going to do a differential backup now, which, like an incremental backup, only backs up files with the archive bit on them. But unlike incremental, it doesn't clear the archive bit. So those ones are going to get backed up again tomorrow. Tomorrow, 10 new ones came in, And a couple of the ones that were added from yesterday got changed, and a couple of the other older ones got changed, and maybe some ones that got backed up in the full backup, but didn't get backed up in the next differential get backed up. So maybe there's 40 files out of the, 50,000, 100,000 files you have on a thing. So we're going to back those all up on the second day. And again, not clear the archive bit. Next day, the list of files with archive bits gets bigger. Differential just backs those up and doesn't clear the archive bit. So if I've done this for 6 days and I have a crash after 6 days, the restore is the full followed by the last differential. That's the short version. Mike's got a 30-minute long version on that, or however long it is. So check that out. Hope that helps. Right. Okay, Scott mentions here at 2:07, he's working to finish up chapter 12, and I know he's working on some other chapters. Every Friday, he and Mike have a status meeting with the publisher. Where are you at? Where are you going to be? Here's what we can do for you, kind of stuff. And so they typically don't get to join us on the Discord channel after this. But there is a Discord channel that we do get together on. It's running 24 hours a day. There's almost 350 people on that thing. I was counting yesterday. No, I don't count them all one by one. Smart people, new people, old people, young people, with lots of different forums and subforums. It's called the unofficial Total Seminars channel. It has no connection with Total Seminars. It's about Total Seminars, but we don't own it. We don't operate it. We are users of it, just like everybody else on there, except the person who created it, our good friend Jose Braden. And Scott, if he hasn't already, is going to post links for it, or I will. In fact, I will. I'm just going to grab it right now. I'm going to give you 2 Discord links because there's 2 different ways that the Discord channel generates links. So here's one, and here's the other. Posted link to Discord. Okay. Yeah, beat me to it. And so we get together, besides all the time on there, people posting questions and answers and all the different subforums, but we try to join there with cameras and mics after these AMAs. So we can kind of confab, we can roundtable, we get to see your faces instead of you just seeing ours, and that's a real pleasure for us. Okay, I've only got one more of those. That's cool. And I will be on Discord today after the show. Takes me 10 or 15 minutes to get my life put together after the show before I join, but lots of other people join up before then, and we hope you'll do the same. If you're not a member, use those links and join right up. If you use that link and it says this is no longer valid or out of date or invalid, doesn't matter. There's a link on that warning page that says continue. Just continue, and you will join the crowd. And what a good crowd it is. A lot of the regulars and original folks are here today. And many more will be here. Moving on. So tell me what luminous beings are we, not this crude matter. I couldn't pinpoint that reference. I have certainly run across it, but I do not know where you're going for. Gabriel Taylor, does that mean Mike Myers has all those certs? Mike Myers has achieved many of the certs that exist over time. He lets some expire. Some of them he achieved before expiration existed, and so he's grandfathered in them. So at one point or another, if he hasn't achieved them all, and he certainly achieved many, he has taken the exam, so he can talk about them intelligently. He's certainly studied for them and knows material. So yeah, lots and lots of certs or comparable information under that big white cowboy hat. Passing 208, more people have been informed about the existence of Total Seminars. Somebody was looking for good learning material on Facebook, so I spammed Total Seminars again. Thank you, Andre. You are like the #1 advertiser right now. Thanks. As long as you're at it, don't forget to push the AMAs, because people just love to talk to Mike when they find out that he does. The Altoid reference. That's a mandate. That's mandatory in a flight deck. As some of you know, I was an airline pilot before I joined Total Seminars. And you are not allowed to get in that flight deck unless you got a can of Altoids ready to go. Because that's pretty close quarters in there. Andrew Hutz, RIP virtual machine. Your virtual machine project is gone, past, you shut it down. Speaking of which, I didn't put this in my news and tricks and traps today, but I will share with you where I'm at. There was a leak. Everybody knows for the last couple of weeks, there's a general leak at Microsoft that Windows 10 appears to about to be supplanted by Windows 11. They're going to do an announcement of something on the 24th of this month, 6 days from now. Whether or not they're going to call it Windows 11, but a couple of days ago, a leak of the ISO of Windows 11 became available. So while I was working in the office yesterday, multitasking show prep and preparing kits to ship, I took a couple of minutes and hunted for and found the ISO image for that. So I started building a virtual machine, and I'm presently stuck. When I hit go past the first 6 or so screens of pre-information and click the big install button, it starts installing, and then it chokes and says this machine doesn't meet the minimum requirements. And I'm experimenting like crazy. It may be that I updated my VirtualBox, and whenever you do that, you've got to update for the changes to take effect. And I did not, I'm sorry, not update, reboot. And I didn't reboot. I did when I walked out of the office last night and just set it to reboot, so it's all ready when I get in there Monday morning. But there are other people who are posting results and virtual machines online with information about it. But I will have mine up and running here just as quick as humanly possible whenever I can configure a VM that meets the minimum requirements. They are not posted. But 8 gigs and 2 cores is not enough. I don't know what else it's hanging on yet. Got theories. Got root access and wiped it out. Okay, yeah, right. So you were doing those experiments. You did a buffer overflow, got root access. And so now you got root access and you use the root access to wipe it out. Hey, that's as valid a test of what can happen if somebody hacks a machine as anything, right? They all work using C or C++ under the hood. Which they? Gabriel Taylor and Mike, does he like his altitudes? I guess I'm missing the context here. They take tests from time to time, so yeah. Sorry, I'm not sure of the context on that one, Gabriel. If that was focused to me, give me a little bit more, please. Let's see, I gave it the suicide Linux treatment. If you don't know, there is a distro of Linux called Suicide Linux. If you type any command wrong, simplest little typo, it just wipes itself out. It's just an exercise in humiliation or proving how perfect you are. But sooner or later, everybody wipes out Suicide Linux. Okay, I see your context there, Patricia and Gabriel. Right. So Mike's AMAs and mine to an extent are all about preparing for CompTIA certifications. So A+, Network Plus, Security Plus, IT Fundamentals Plus. Mike works directly with topics on those things, and I work indirectly using Raspberry Pis as tools to help prepare for those things. So if A+ wants to talk about an FTP server or maybe Network Plus, we'll build an FTP server. We'll figure out how to access it, how to put files on it, how to take files off of it, use Wireshark on a Raspberry Pi to capture the file transfer protocol traffic, things like that. Today we're doing cameras because there's cameras and multimedia in A+. Okay, there's 212, the link for pi_r², 212. And Dave knows enough Python to be dangerous. Yes, I am just dangerous. I have definitely dropped the ball on that. Given the workload and home load, I will get back to it after the 28th, I anticipate this month. Andrew, Dave, I just broke into a vulnerable Linux VM and found a user account password hashes. What should I do with them? Well, what can you do with a hash, right? You can't do anything directly with a hash. The only thing, I just broke into a vulnerable Linux VM. You should raise your hand and say, "Dear federal officers, I have just committed a felony." So what I'm presuming here is that you have broken into a system that you built that has hashed passwords in it. I'm terrified. But what bad guys do with collected hashes is they compare them against hashes that have already been created in dictionary and rainbow table attacks. So here I got a hash, and let's make it a 4-digit hash that doesn't really exist, called 1332. And so now I'm going to go to one of these published gigantic dictionaries of hashes and do a search and see if there's a 1332. And if there is, I'm going to see what password was used to generate that hash. That's part of the dictionary of the rainbow table. And then I will know the password. Hope that helped. Mike's got a very long, a very thorough, not long, presentation on that in one of the archives. What language do I need to follow along playing with Raspberry Pi? So we don't program in here much. When we do program, all of the program that I've done is very, very simple. Mostly 95% copy and paste Python. It is right now the go-to language. If somebody says to an existing coding professional, what language should I learn first? Especially if you're learning on your own, Python is go-to. After that, we can talk C, C++, Java, JavaScript. Yes, Scott, why are you working today? It's a holiday. You have my exalted blessing to take the rest of the afternoon off after your meeting with all of those with whom you meet. Tell the owner and do nothing with it. Right. We're white hats. Darn right. Yeah, don't break into vulnerable systems that aren't yours. Okay, it's vulnerable and designed for practice. Fine. Okay. Thank you, Hart. I can tap my chest now. I've switched to a different microphone instead of my wireless. I love my wireless, and I'm going to be changing mics again because I have something so cool that I have been working on for 6 weeks, mostly idea work for 6 weeks. This week, I implemented it all but the final step, and I'll show you. Oh, it's exciting. That's right, Scott. Galveston got the news on Juneteenth. They were told by Northern soldiers. Who's here from the North? Oh, yeah. I super scrolled. If you don't know what super scrolling is, do this sometime. Just put your machine and put your chat on pause for a little while, and then just kind of slowly go up it, but don't take it to the end. And then at some point, you'll scroll down a message or two, and it'll say, nope, you're too far behind. And it just scrolls the thing all the way to the bottom of the list. Then you got to go back and find where you left off. Yeah, Hackers Playground, sandboxes. What do we have behind door number 3, Johnny? Yeah, exactly. That Johnny's dead. That's a shame. Johnny. Tell it will know the last name. Hey, speaking of RIP, somebody said RIP VM. I have an RIP. It was in the news yesterday. This one hit me, and that's why I'm sharing it with you. Frank Bonner passed away yesterday. If you don't know Frank Bonner, first of all, you're under 40. He played a character called Herb Tarlick in my absolute #1 favorite show growing up, WKRP in Cincinnati. And I got into radio and amateur radio and commercial radio, probably in large part because of that show and because of the movie FM and a lot of other reasons. But that just fed my addiction. Also, whenever anybody from WKRP passes, Gordon Jump is gone and so forth. It really hits me hard. It hit me hard last night. I didn't drink. I don't drink much, but I had a depression music fest. I sat here and tried to work and played some of the best sad mood music. Not music that puts you in a sad mood, but music that goes with it. And I killed 2 or 3 hours doing that. Okay. Scott Jernigan, not this year. Arduino uses processing language to program and do projects. What does Raspberry Pi use? Raspberry Pi is a computer. It's just like a Windows computer, an Intel computer, a Mac machine. The difference is twofold. One, the size of it. So quite literally a little bigger than a credit card, a little smaller than a deck of cards. And the processor isn't an Intel or an AMD. It's an ARM chip made by Broadcom, same as the new Apple computers. So it has and does everything that those computers use, including a standard operating system. It's a Linux operating system that was designed to run on ARM, ARM, CPU, not ARM, it's ARM. The company is the word ARM, CPUs. And so you can use any programming language that you want. It comes with C+ and Python. And when I bring up the server today, I'll show you all the languages that are native to it. And there are plenty more languages that you can add, just like you can add C+ or Java or JavaScript IDEs or write programs with interpreters and compilers to run on a PC or a Mac. You can do the same thing with here. So we can program in any language that we choose. Just install the application to generate or to write code in. And if you want to write it in a word processor or a text processor, more power to you. I've done that. In fact, almost all the programming except 2 jobs that we've ever done in here, I've done with just a text editor. As long as we're doing that, I should mention that Arduino is a microcontroller. It's not a computer. And Raspberry Pi has a competitive product they just came out with a couple of months ago. It's called the Raspberry Pi Pico. And I got my Picos in a couple of weeks ago. I've been experimenting with them on and off. Yeah, I'm not going to dig that out. Here's half a dozen of them, including the one that I'm working on projects right now. I found a project. I've got a project here all lined up and ready to go. And I decided, and everything that I've ordered has come in. I'm actually ready to fire up on that. But then I found a project that I would rather do first. So I ordered one piece of equipment yesterday. It's like $6. And when that comes in, that'll be my first project, other than, the ones I've already done, the Hello World, the Blink the LED, use the onboard temperature sensor. So competitive with Arduinos. Some are better in features, some have worse features. You get the idea. How are we doing here on time? 42. I got about 18 minutes to get caught up. I can do it. Can TFTP use to update firmware? Yes. Used all the time, especially like in Asus computers. They will link up with a home repository and use TFTP to transfer firmware code down. Yep. So a preview of Win 11, says Tullowit at 220 from PC Mag on YouTube. Looks interesting. Rumored it's going to have a GUI facelift rather than a giant leap for mankind. That's the big discussion. It absolutely has a GUI facelift. Microsoft has been working on a GUI refresh called Sunnyvale. It's their code for it. That's certainly included, and there is a lot of discussion as to whether or not the kernel and core will be changed, are changed, how many new features, bells and whistles are going to happen, and how many are not. I believe that Microsoft has a huge list of things that they want to do to Windows 10, and they never do. Every time there's the 6-month update, the H1 and H2, 20H1, 20H2 last year, and so forth. They do a few of those, and I don't think it's because the other ones aren't ready. I think because they don't want to overwhelm their customer base. I think this is where they implement all what they have on plate and ready to go. So I think it is going to be a major facelift, but I'm not always a good prognosticator. We'll see how that goes. Andre, we got news today that as of Saturday, June 26th, all restrictions suspended except for social distancing and in public transport. Wonderful news. I'm glad you can kind of stretch out again and take your mask off in your house. 4/22/2020. Oh, thank you, Scott. So Scott posted the backup scheme. Oh, no, I posted that. I saw blue. That's me. Gabriel Taylor says, David Rush, what language do I need to learn to be good with Raspberry Pi? I think I've answered that. It doesn't matter. But if you're going to learn a new language, Pi lives with a lot of its features and functions done in Pi. Done in Pi. Done in Python. How's that? Yes, Raspberry Pi operating system is a Linux. It's a native Linux distribution. It's not a microcontroller. It's a computer that runs Linux. Florentina Vince, greetings. Hey, I sent a problem that I have with my Zential server. I accidentally unplugged my server, and when I booted up, I showed some errors and didn't boot to Zential. I sent an image to the Discord server. Okay, well, there are folks who are watching the Discord server right now and may or may not respond, and I will look at that when I get over there at the end of the show. I am not familiar with Zential servers, but I will do some research when I see that, or hopefully I can look at that and say, oh yeah, that's because it's common to this. We'll do it. So anybody who gets a chance to eyeball over on the Discord server, check out Florentina's post, by all means, check that out. And otherwise, we'll do it together. And hopefully you can join us there. You're already online, so you can. Okay, there's Discord link at 226 from Scott and one from me, and they're different and they both work. Tell it, you Trekkies not knowing a Yoda quote. Sorry. Yeah, I picked up that you got Mike and Scott were luminaries. I just didn't know the quote. I'm more of a Trekkie than a Star Wars guy, but I like Star Wars a lot. And I can do most of the good quotes. Like, there's my Wookiee quote. David Rush, I always spam the AMA and drama when spamming dual seminars. Way to go. Thank you, buddy. Dave, says Andrew, at 232, where did you find the ISO? I want to get a hold of it. I will put that on the Discord channel when we get done here. It's a magnet torrent link. And I got to tell you, it took a while to find it. YouTube World Review of Windows 11, the build leak. Here's the PC World link. Okay, thank you, Scott. Scott can't stay away. He wants to just utterly focus on chapter 12, but it just kills him to look away. So I think it's totally safe to attempt to communicate with him. He will see your post. 235, Andrew Hutz. I love that my questions make me sound like some sinister black hatter. You did that question on purpose to sound like that. I don't know who you're fooling. Python is life. That and, oh, dang. Melange, spice. At least it makes the water of life. What would you suggest, says Lone Wolf One. Greetings, Lone Wolf One. We've seen you here before, I believe. What would you suggest for remote career that's not too difficult? There are tons and tons and tons and tons of support agencies, IT support, basic, PC support that are filling roles with remote support. Easy is relative. How comfortable are you with the stuff that's done in A+? Can you talk your way out of a paper bag on that? If somebody comes to you with a malware problem, can you talk them through that on a chat or on a voice chat, on something like that? If you can fog a mirror, then you are eligible. So I would be looking for, in all the regular job sites, looking under CompTIA A+ certification. That's a great search term in Indeed and Monster and Lynda and LinkedIn, right? All the big job sites. Look for those kinds of things. Look for CompTIA. Look for CompTIA Net Plus. And that's where my focus goes. I'm sure there are a lot of other wonderful remote jobs. It all depends on your skill set. My wife is a an accounting professional. She's been working at home since before the pandemic, and only now has her company opened up the office and said, hey, let's put on a good show for the home office and turn up a couple of days a week. So, but, if you're into accounting, that's easy. Well, it's easy, right? If you're into accounting, it's easy. If you're not so much. Take a look at the archives. Look under careers, resumes, and job hunting. Mike has done a number of presentations on kinds of jobs that are available based on common credentials, certifications, degrees, so forth. Andrew promises that he's one of the good guys. Do you think the people who aren't good guys say that? I think they do. There you go. Tullowitz said. Tullowitz and I, same thing. Olson, yes. Also played them in Reboot of the Series. Okay. David Zintera, good to see you, man. I must have missed you earlier, or you would have said hi, and I would have said that. Zach Morrill's here. Just popped in to say I won't be here for the stream, but I'll be on Discord. Okay. If you're still here, good to see you then. I'm glad you could pop in. Alex, oh God. Can you explain the use of an 802.11 jammer? Sure, it's really simple. I'm not sure if you mean the professional use or how you turn it on, but an 802.11 jammer, first and foremost in the United States, is utterly and absolutely illegal. Okay, jamming any kind of radio frequency communication is a federal crime in the U.S. You're not in the U.S. I don't know what you can do in Italy. I understand everything. But very simply, it just transmits a wideband signal of reasonably high-powered noise across the 2.4 gigahertz band, 802.11, right? Or whatever band 802.11 we're working with. The new 802.11x can work in 6, and an AC work in 5 gigahertz. It just puts out such a broad, noisy, electronically, statically kind of signal that regular Wi-Fi data can't penetrate through that, can't be pulled out of the staticky background noise that 802.11 jammers cause. This is Johnny Olson speaking. Thank you. Yes, that's exactly right. Okay. Hugh Wilson also passed. R.I.P. Chow says Scott to Alex. I should have said Chow. David Rush, I am still trying to recover from Cousin It dying in April. That was sad. And he was some other characters. I'm thinking he might have been the occupant of R2-D2. Otherwise, some very not particularly tall character that I saw him in. Sunnyvale from Trailer Park. Yeah, 2 words, I think. Sunnyvale. But I may be mistaken. John Lehman. Evening Rush. Any experience with Server Plus? No. There's a new one out this year. Seems to cover cloud and hardware. Just looking to see if, nope, I got nothing on Server Plus. Haven't looked into it. Mike and Scott, and to a lesser extent myself, we're talking about becoming a little more familiar with it for exactly the reason that you mentioned. There's a new one coming out, so we may have to do a little bit of diving into it. But for the moment, I can't speak to it in any authoritative way. Everybody's saying, hi, are ATM cells used today, or are they obsolete? Mike answered this question for you on Wednesday. I will repeat his answer, as did Scott. They are completely obsolete. They were 53 byte cells and layer 2 kind of things, and nah, they're gone. John Lehman, question. I'm in the north of the UK. Got a couple different UK folks that are building now. It's rained. It hasn't rained in 20 days, other than start building an ark. What do you experienced outdoor cookers recommend for slow cooked meat for a newbie? The easiest slow cooked meat in the world to smoke are half chickens. Very, very easy. You can smoke them in 2.5 to 3 hours at 275 degrees in a smoke chamber. Wonderful, easy stuff to do. Brine them and or give them a rub firsthand. And then after that, the easiest and best tasting thing that you're ever going to get outside of brisket, it takes a little time, is baby back ribs. You can do baby back ribs in 5 to 7 hours. And again, 275, it's a beautiful, wonderful thing. It's very, very, very easy to do. And that's what I'm recommending. No, that was my Kenny Baker. Kenny Baker was there too. Did he pass too recently? Somebody did. It was, I don't know. Somebody look it up. Andrew, I still need to find the default, Deoth watch mic. Okay, that's really easy because I just accidentally ran across a bunch of them a couple days before Mike mentioned that. Go to AliExpress and just look for Deoth, and you will find zillions of them on there, and then you can go find more quality versions. But that's such a simple, easy thing to do. Cheap, inexpensive ones, low quality, still work. Deb Mohan, our ATM cells used today, repeating what layer the OSI. They were layer 2, and they're gone. You will not get any questions. It was in N10007, but it just gets very, very light treatment. So it's a layer 2. It's 53 byte cells. It is protocol agnostic. Forgot to put Dave Rush, so I deleted it. That's okay. I read all messages that don't say at somebody else's name. Okay, good. Caught up. Oh, wish I had the knowledge to be bowed to, but many thanks. Cool. All right, so I got a couple of minutes to do our news, tricks, traps, and such, and then get on to Uncle Project. So where we're going today, my big project in total is ongoing, but I did put together a presentation using cameras that are made by Raspberry Pi, not USB cameras. And we're going to use those to do still captures and video captures. Here's one. This is a 2nd generation one. We need them out for later anyway, so I'll show you on this. So a little circuit board, not quite an inch by an inch. There's a little fixed lens on there. It's fixed focus, uses electronics to autofocus to a degree. And that lens is not designed to be removable, but it can be removed, and I'll show you some reasons to do that. The bottom of the ribbon cable has a solid piece of plastic on one side. So if you put it in backward, you can't hurt anything. The other side can kind of see that silveriness. That's a whole bunch of individual fingers or connectors. Can I get any better focus? Nah, if I get too close, it loses focus. But there's a slot on the Raspberry Pi, which these are designed to go into. And there's 3.5 generations of these plus third-party ones. So. Thank goodness they're rugged. I just threw it. No, I'm not going to rebox it, but I am going to put it back in its anti-static because that's what I do. All right. You don't need that. You don't need that. News, tricks, and traps. Waiting on my PoE hat. I got all my Pico stuff. I talked about all that. The thing that I ordered today is a 2-line, 16 characters by 2 lines, LCD display to go on my Raspberry Pi Pico. I wanted to see hello world in writing, not in flashed Morse code, which I've done. And I'd like to do that with you if anybody's interested. Resource archives is up. I've seen that. pirsquare.zapto.org. Okay. 6 weeks ago, I started a mental project and a research project to accomplish it. I have completed the project. Now all I got to do is integrate it into the system. I have the equipment to do it. I just didn't have the time to pull this off today. So I grew up in the 70s, 60s, and Friday nights, Saturday nights, Saturday afternoon sometimes, especially up where I was growing up, we had 2 horror movie shows that were geared toward kids. preteens, early teens, perhaps. And there's one of those, or were one of those in every major community and a lot of small communities. There's even one who's still in operation today, Sven Gulli. You catch him on various online forums. He was on a new network, a new spin-off network for the last couple of years, but I haven't seen him for a couple of months. Anyways, love that stuff. So what they do is they show you 10 minutes of movie, and then they come back to the host or hosts who do skits and whatever. And oftentimes during the movies, they would have these sound effects that they would pipe in. So if you see Godzilla falling, you would hear, breaking of glass and crashing sounds that were provided. And I always wanted kind of a sound effects machine like that. Today, in concept, it's really easy to build one of those. Wow. That's what you call a scammer. And so what I've been looking for is a good audio play box that would lend itself to being a sound effects generator. And I would pump that into projects and this. Well, I finally found one. It's not friendly, but once you get it up and running, wow, cool. And then, of course, you got to have source, and being who I am, I have been collecting sound effects for decades, and I got them all in here. The product is called Volumio. And of course, one of my product criteria is that it had to be able to run on a Pi, because I actually will also take these to DJ events and gigs and things like that. So Volumio it's its own image. It's got a version of Raspberry Pi OS. It's not, the Raspberry Pi OS is not GUI. It's totally text. So you've got to run it. No, you don't got to run it headless. But Volumio has a touchscreen interface, graphical interface that works for it. And I just happen to have a 7-inch touchscreen on a Raspberry Pi here. So I installed it on that. And it is just working like gangbusters after about 3 days of installation and pain and tweaking and things like that. So I think it's too complicated of a project for me to do with you here, but I will demonstrate it for you next week, fully integrated. Let me show it to you right now, less than fully integrated. But no, it's yeah. You can access this via a web page, or you can run it on the touchscreen directly. So I'll show it to you on the web page. Not that one. Volumio page right here. Okay, we share this. I'm even going to make it make noise, but I don't think it'll get picked up very well by a microphone that's not right on top of the speakers. Okay, now we go over here and we share this. Okay, so this is the Volumio page. Take it back to the home page here. That's what the home page looks like. Go into the music library to add and curate my music. You can also get that here. So I click on music library. I currently have it stored internally. And it's all categorized. Oh, I had a really good one that I was going to show you. I forgot what it is. Let's see what's in miscellaneous. These are all very quiet. All right, we'll do a train. So don't know if you can hear that. It's just a little 7-second thing, but I've got horror screens in here and zillions of other. Let's try one more. See if there's something loud in here. Too quiet. All right, you get the idea. So Volumio, just cooler than all get out. All right. This question's lining up. Scott's going to keep an eye on those, I imagine. I'm going to finish doing what I got to do here. Okay, David Mohan, your question last week that I answered in part. A little more information for you here, but I will also suggest to you that if you do a search on TDMA versus VS CDMA, you'll be able to find the article that I found on it. which is much more in depth than the information that I'm going to give you. I'm just going to give you 5 comparison bullets here. TDMA, a time division, multiple access. CDMA is code division. So that's their first difference, is what they actually mean. TDMA is older, came out first, and it time slices different stations or hosts or feeds or inputs access to a transmission channel, whereas CDMA, certainly newer, it's replacing TDMA in a lot of fields, because CDMA, unlike TDMA, allows different inputs, different users, different hosts, different data streams to simultaneously use the carrier channel. So it has potentially faster throughput and greater bandwidth. So the job of TDMA is to chop or divide the channel into sequential time portions, and each user gets their respective time slot for X amount of time, and then they have to wait until their next time slot opens up. Where CDMA uses a spread spectrum thing. Spread spectrum says, I'm going to transmit on this sub channel, might be frequency, might be something else, and then I'm going to transmit on this one, not on a sequential, and then this one, and this one, and this one. And then other stations are doing the same thing, so they're scattershotting their signal, their various digital bits in a pseudo random order, and then the receiving end has to collect them all and reorder them. So CDMA allows actual simultaneous usage of the channel, while TDMA does not. So hope that helps. The project, here we go. Let's check on questions and then we'll get fired up. Again, I'm not doing a real long one. We're going to look at how to install the camera real quickly, talk a couple of minutes about the different cameras and some of their features that are available. And then I'm going to look at 2 utilities. I'm going to show you a handful, 10 or so commands and subcommands of Raspi Still and Raspi Vid. And that'll be it. So hopefully we get done in about 30, 40 minutes, maybe less. Okay, what did I leave off over here? There we go. 256, Telewit. And the remote operator for R2D2 died, Grant Imahara. Grant Imahara is dead? You know, I think I heard that and I forgot, and now it's back. I mean, he was only like 14. Good Lord. I didn't know that he actually was the remote op. That's some awesome cred. Kenny Baker used to walk his dog near me in a place called Ashton Park in Preston. I waved at him a few times. Okay. And Peter Mayhew is from over in those neck of the woods too. Man. All right. Telewit's talking to Scott and me. Next level for AMAs, we'll do the in-ear monitors with the back channel folks talking directly to the host. You know, I think that would be so cool that we could do some kind of direct voice and or video activity. But, you know, you take Mike's show when he gets 50 people, sometimes on a really exciting day, 70, 80, over 100, and me hanging in the 20 to 30 zone. People, you know, we get a dozen people talking together on Discord and it never goes well. So we shall see. How many Picos did I buy? I bought 6. I tried to order one at a time, a couple of different times, and got aced out. And so I said, to heck with you. I'll pre-order for when the next batch comes in, and at $4 a piece, it's cheaper to buy more because of the shipping. So got a half a dozen. I have a Pi camera and had to work hard to adjust the colors. Yes, it takes a little bit of effort to get the switches right. When I say switches, I'm talking about the command line switches. That's from Alex at 258. Yeah, there's got to be projects for the Pico named Salsa and Gaio and DeGaio. If I do something new and original on it and then that isn't taken, you can bet your bottom dollar it will. Old people were born in the 60s. When I hear the 60s, I think Hendrix. Yeah, me too. All along the watchtower when the wind is crying merry. There, I set you up, Telewit. That ought to get your stream going for the next hour. Okay, you went with Purple Haze. And Cheese and Chong. Thank you very much. I like Cheese and Chong better. Peach is cool. Alex talks to Telewit, Jason Helms. We went from Purple Haze in the 60s to Purple People Eater. It was a one-horn giant, one-horn, polka dotted. I don't have the wrong order. One-horn, long-haired, flying Purple People Eater. That's it. Let's see if Dave has the same issue. I didn't look at your guys' co-conversation. Everything was purple. Googling. Oh yeah, yeah. Mine when I first started playing with them, depending on the utility that you use, it'll go purple or pink. But it's different utilities will do that. I think the current version is much happier now, and Raspberry Still and Raspberry Vid are definitely cleaner. But yeah, in those early days when they did pink, I couldn't fix it. There was just no good fixing on it. So I would take images with purple backgrounds, and then I would use Photoshop or something like that and clean up the pink. One-eyed, one-horned. Thank you. Somebody had to bring up Barney. Nice. What was that? Oh, that. We can close that. All right. Well, then let's get fired up here. This week's project, install a Pi camera into a Raspberry Pi, then use Raspberry Still and Raspberry Vid to capture still and motion from the camera. So Microsoft, Raspberry Pi group comes out with the Raspberry Pi. And the first accessory that they came out with for the Pi was a camera. The camera looked something like this. There's some physical differences. I'll show you pictures in a second. So we'll call it the version 1 camera. It was 5 megapixel. You couldn't use it in low light conditions, strictly daylight or ambient light, good lighting. And it was okay. Everybody was excited about it. It had some challenges like the one that Telewit and Alice have mentioned. Namely, some utilities made all the images look purpley or pink in the background. And so they came out with version 2. And in fact, they came out with a pair of version 2s. One was a daylight model. The other one was a low light or nighttime model. Had an IR. It's kind of weird. This one has an IR filter in it. And then the night one, they simply take the filter out. So a lot of people took their version 2 camera and pop the lens off. That takes some work. You got it, and you're going to carve up not the glass of the lens, but the bezel around the lens. You're going to damage it. It happens. But then you can pull the IR filter out of there and then reinstall the lens and kind of glue it back on, and that would work. They were $20-$30 at the time. You can get version 2s now for $10, maybe 15 if you're looking for anything expensive. And both of them had the fixed lens, so you were stuck with the focal length that it provided. Then not too long ago, last year, they came out with this new one, the version 3. Version 3 brings 2 things to the party. I haven't taken this one out of the case yet. You may notice this cable is a little longer than the other one. That's one of the big third-party aftermarket things. People sell longer cables for these than sometimes the one Raspberry Pi works with, because you're obviously limited to this much distance from your Raspberry Pi. So this one's physically larger. It's got a larger circuit board, and it has a removable lens system on it. In fact, there's 2 of them. There's one for C mount, and then there's the other for a CS mount. So you can use 2 different kinds of lenses depending on the mount that's available for them. This does not come with a lens. It costs $50 retail, $49.99 US. And then you got to go buy a lens. And there's lots of third-party lenses out there that are designed to work with it, and there are plenty that weren't designed to work with this, but they have C mounts and CS mounts, and so you can use them right out of the back. So here's one. I bought this lens a long time. I just bought this high-quality camera this past weekend. So I haven't even played with it yet. All right, so there, ooh, Almost lost a set screw. I know you can't see it. Hang on, I want to put this in the bag before I lose it. There it goes. All right, so there's a little C mount. They call it a TV lens, but it's a zoom lens. So really cool. And there are other ways to use other lenses that I will show you in just a second. And you can use those on the old cameras. I have Canon cameras here for my professional work, semi-professional work. I shoot videos in a studio upstairs and do some other goodies. Come out of there, you. All right, force it. And this came with a little screwdriver. I don't want to lose that. I already have. Oh, there it is. Okay, so 3 generations of cameras now. Boy, I'm an idiot. I just put that in the wrong box. That's all right. It's boxed and secure. What a fool am I. All right, so that new one needs 12 megapixels. So we did 5 megapixel, 8 megapixel, 12 megapixel. And it's not a low light camera either. Let's take a look at some stuff here. Share this. I dare you. So kind of hard to tell the difference between a version 1 and a version 2 camera. Read it sideways, that's a version 1, so that's one way to know. Here's a version 2. It says V2. There was a version 2 and a 2.1. And you see this little tab. That's plastic that covers the lens, so that's got to be removed or you get a little fuzzy image. And then you can kind of sort of see some tabs in here. They make little wrenches. You can 3D print your own wrench and get it, and that makes the lens easy to remove. It does have a little dab of glue in there. If you don't, you got to take a screwdriver and kind of wedge it here and tap it from the back and do that on each 4 and loosen up and break the glue, and it boogers it up pretty good. But as I said, there's good reason to take that lens off sometimes. One is replacement lenses, and the other is to operate it without a lens. Here's the Pi Noir. It's a version 2. It's got the IR filter removed. So it's also a 2.1, but they put it on a dark circuit board so you can tell it's for working in the dark. I'll come back to that one. Here's the new one. They call it the high quality camera. Raspberry Pi high quality camera. So it comes like this with a cover. You can put all kinds of different lenses on it. This is one of the many third-party cameras. What they do is they take a Pi Noir, the dark camera, and then they attach it to a little circuit board and steal some power from here that runs ultraviolet or infrared lights. So this is great for hooking up to your robot so it can run around in the dark. They don't have a lot of distance that they can capture on. All right, we'll come back to that in a moment. All right, so that's the different cameras. Let's talk about taking off lenses. Really? Okay, I see why I did that. All right. So here's a version 2 with the lens on it, brand spanking because it still has the tab on it here. And then we've taken the lens off of it, and you can see the photo sensor right inside there. Now, what you can do with that is if you have an external lens, anything that will focus an image directly onto the sensor, then you don't need a lens here. So here's a way to do that. I've done this. This one isn't mine. I have it on a different Canon mount system that was 3D printed, but they've taken a little housing here that you can fit the camera and sensor into, and then that snugs onto the back of this adapter, and then we can attach that straight to a lens. This adapter obviously has to have Very good dimensions so that it can make sure the focus of light coming out of here is right exactly on here, but it works beautifully. I've done this with Canon lenses. I do this, I still have it's all set up and I use it occasionally on my telescope, on one of my telescopes. So instead of looking through the eyepiece, I have this set up on the eyepiece with a bunch of stuff that was 3D printed. And then I can send the output straight to a recording device. I can record it on stream. I can send it to the big screen television in the house, and we can all get a good close look at that stuff. It's kind of cool. All right, so rather than go through my notes, I'm going to show you how to install the camera here. This is an older Pi. This is a first generation Pi. The current generations have this connector a little more in this direction toward the micro SD card. Let me break away from that for a second and show you. This is a Pi 4. And you can see that little white tab here. That's the camera connector. This over here is a display connector. That's for hooking up things like a 10-inch touch screen or a 7-inch touch screen, or there's some other displays that'll fit on there. All right, back to that image. So to install the camera, you go to this connector and you raise both of these tabs carefully, gently, and at the same time, you can kind of wiggle them up side by side, but it's safer to do together. And when you do it, you don't want to pull too hard. Okay, we don't want to rip that out. There are lots of stories of people who've ripped them out. Okay, so there's the tab up. I can zoom that a little bit. And that's going to be a locking tab when we get everything in. And now we're going to insert our ribbon cable with the metallic fingers facing the micro SD card. And you push this thing in as far as it will go. And when it bottoms out, again, carefully, both sides at the same time, press these down, and that will lock it in place. Now, the Raspberry Pi 2, 3s, and 4s are pretty safe with these things. The Raspberry Pi Zero has a smaller, narrower connector here. You actually need a different ribbon cable to work with it. And that connector is very, very delicate. Lots of people damage them. If you're going to play with a camera on a Zero, do a little bit of digging and research for videos on how to do it and stills how to do it. I've done it once after watching a bunch of those just to make sure I was really careful, and it came out fine. But I can see how easy it is to break. Stand by 1 second here. Getting something out of the way. There we go. What are we doing here? 22 after. That's all right. We're ready to start commands. So you got a camera in. Now, you got to hold your camera up. There are all kinds of camera mounts and bases and things like that available online from millions of different sources. Oh, I wanted to here. I've got a picture of the Raspberry Pi Zero with its connectors. Let me show you that. Okay, so you can see this is a standard ribbon cable width that would go into the camera, and then it's been narrowed down to much smaller here to go into the camera connector on the Pi Zero. So you can get these cables not from Raspberry Pi. You got to get them third party. So they've lifted the tab here, push that guy in, press the tabs down gently together, and now you're hooked up with the camera. Some people have made their own camera. Sony has one, a couple other people, where they've taken all the components that are on the circuit board and moved most of them to along the cable. So if you put a housing around all of this, the only thing that's exposed is this tiny little lens, making it great as a spy camera. Used only for good and legal purposes, I'm sure you know. Okay, anything else in there? Last step, you've installed your camera into your Pi. Do that with power off. Now, when you fire up your Pi, you can either use the graphical utility configuration settings utility, or you can open up the text prompt and run sudo raspi-config. See the name of the command right here. And yours is going to look different. They change all the time, but go into the interface options off the main menu somewhere. And then there'll be an option to enable or disable the camera interface. You click on it, the menu will come up, say, do you want to enable this? You say yes, okay it, back, finish, and it's going to tell you to reboot. And when you reboot, you're ready to use your camera. So then you can power, of course, you powered up to do that part, mount it. The way I have mine mounted right now, see, I can't lift that camera and show up. I've got a little box that's, I don't know, about this size. And I got the camera lens kind of sticking up over the top and a little piece of tape holding up there. And it's just balanced right now because I don't use it for anything but demonstrations and labs and things like that in here. So putting it on a regular mount is kind of overkill. But again, there's some really cool mounts online. Plan for that when you're purchasing a case. If you're going to use your camera, make sure that the case has space for the ribbon cable to go in and out. All right, it's up, it's running. You've got it pointed, except you don't know what it's pointed at, right? So now we got to start having to use some utilities to figure it out. There are 4 utilities that come native with Raspberry Pi OS, 2 of them for daily use, and then 2 of them for professional use. We'll use Raspi Still and Raspi Vid. You don't have to install these. There's no sudo apt-get install Raspi, blah, blah, blah. It's part of the operating system, so you're ready to roll. Excuse me. The only thing that you may want to do if you're going to capture video on here is sudo apt install VLC. It takes VLC to watch what we're watch the motion videos. Now, there's also 2 other utilities, Raspi YUV. I'm sorry, yeah, Raspi YUV and Raspi Vid YUV. That's for professional output, and they generate raw output, not professional. So you can convert them from raw into anything that you like. I'll get into the output types that Raspi Still and Raspi Vid get into. All right, let's connect to the server. That's the server. This is just a Raspberry Pi computer doing its thing. Thank you very much. At 3:26, Scott posted the Raspi Vid or the Raspi link. I have a link, a web page that I'm going to show you when I get to that part of my presentation here that shows you some of the documentation and how to get all the documentation for using Raspi Vid and Raspi Still. All right, let me share this. Sounded like steam escaping, didn't it? Okay, so this is all done with the terminal. And we'll start with our old friend that we do with every command, Raspi Still -- help. And there is a lot of stuff going on here. Of course, we can do some very simple stuff, and we will, but there's a lot of power and options and controls that you can do with this thing. You can set the quality of your JPEGs. You can force it to generate raw output data. You can control the EXIF, the metadata on it. Lots of other goodies. So I'm going to show you a handful of these things. I'm also going to show you what Scott just posted, the link. See, where did I put that? Over here. There it is. Go to the top of this and share it. So Raspberry Pi Group has about 3 different pages on the Raspberry Pi, on the Raspberry Pi cameras. Oh, you took me back there. I didn't save them all on this page. This is the 3rd page, talks about utilities like Raspi Still and Raspi Vid, Raspi YUV, and so forth. They talk about how to set up your camera. A lot of this stuff is out of date. Starts with preview mode, and even that's out of date. I'm going to show you demos in this. So this is the Raspi Vid stuff. And then if you go about a little more than halfway down this page, oh, I got good stuff on here. There's some comparison charts about the differences between hardware and software and lots of sub explanations of all this stuff. There's some specific things that can only be done with Raspi Still. There are specific things that can only be done with Raspi Vid. Yeah, it's down here. So there it is, Raspi Vid. So we'll talk about the most interesting ones of those and most useful, but they're depending on your needs, there is lots and lots more stuff you can do. All right, let's go back to the utility. There we go. All right, so we did Raspi Still help. Let's look at how to use it as a previewer so we can get it aimed. There's a couple of different ways to do it. Raspberry Pi in that documentation says do Raspi Still, Raspi, stop it, -P for preview. But that doesn't work anymore. So there's two other options. One is a switch that they used to use for demo. You can see this is a different image. This isn't turning up in the graphical page, but what it did is it just turned on for 5 seconds what it can see, shows it in motion. So I don't think I'm going to turn that camera right now. It'll fall over. And you can also accomplish the same thing with -F for full screen. So it'll just stay up there for 5 seconds or so. I'll look at the camera. Hey, and it did. Excuse me. And then this is one that I use. It's a very cool one. -T0. T0 puts it in preview mode forever. So you can use this as kind of a real-time monitor. Point this down the hall, point it out the front door, and just have it running as a window on a Raspberry Pi or something like that. I know it's a little teary right now because it's, we're going through Zoom and through YouTube and through Raspi. So, but the normal is pretty good looking. Oh yeah, and we're going through VNC as well. So I got a ton of stuff going on here. So to break out of this, I'm going to use Control-C. And now we're back out of there. All right, so that's basics way. We haven't created any images with that. We just use it to preview. So while I'm previewing, I could change the aim point of my camera and things like that. Now, if I want to preview it in a particular place on my screen and a particular size, I can do that. I don't have to have full screen. So I can say Raspi Still, and then I'll use that -P, and you follow with 4 digits. The pixel coordinates of where you want the upper left-hand corner of your image to be, followed by the width and the height. So maybe an 800 by 600. And now it's in the upper left-hand corner of my screen. It's 800 by 600. Nice. And since I didn't use the -T0, it disappeared after 5 seconds. So cool. I've got to, oh, I can't do that, huh? Okay. All right, let's take a basic, simple picture. The default output type is JPEG, and that leads to something kind of interesting. So I'm just going to take a picture right now. I've previewed it, I've aimed it. So we'll say Raspi Still minus the letter O for output, and then a file name. We'll call this image1 dot. Now you can put any extension here that you want, but it's going to be a JPEG image. So JPG sounds like a pretty good one there, so I can keep decent track of it. I'll look at the camera, lean over toward it. It did a default 5-second timeout on that. So let's see it. I'll just use my file browser. I'm in my home directory, so it saved the file to my home directory. Double click it. And boy, that's would have been cool if I opened my eyes, huh? I'll try and keep track of the images as we create them. But there's not much hope of that. Let's say that I mounted my Raspberry Pi upside down. So now the image is reversed and flipped. So we can add a couple more command switches to that, like minus vertical flip and minus horizontal flip. And that should have appeared here. And there I am in all my upside down and flipped glory. I can't point this outside. I would have pointed it outside, but I've got the light diffusers up. And while I could use that USB camera last week, I'd have to move the whole Pi and everything out to the window. It was a pain given the amount of time that I had. So sorry about that. You just have to settle for pictures and videos of me today. I want to wait a specified amount of time before I take my next picture. The default is 5 seconds. Yeah, 3. So let's get rid of the vertical and horizontal flip. Now we used T0 last time to make it minus T space 0. And that means infinite. But if you put a number of milliseconds here, 1,000, for instance, that's 1 second. That's how long it will wait before it takes the picture. So let's make this one different. I'll stick my hand up for this one. Hey, so you can make that a long time. I'm going to take a picture in 30 seconds so I can get everything all set up in advance. So you'd say minus T 30,000, 1,000 for every second. Just if you're curious, if you use a V1 camera, version 1, the 5 megapixel, each image is about 2.4 megabytes. Gives you about 425 pictures per gigabyte. So you can suck up about a gigabyte worth of space if you take 1 picture per minute every 7 hours. And that means in a day, 3.3 or so gigabytes per day. So if you're going to do time lapsing or take pictures every minute in an automated fashion, I'm going to show you how to do that. We're almost there. Then have enough space. Obviously, the version 2 camera and the high quality camera at 8 megapixel and 12 megapixel will do much larger images and therefore take up a lot more space. Okay, did that. There are tons and tons and tons of controls and options, and I'm not going to show them all to you, just some of the interesting ones. Let's see. Just like you can preview an image in 800 by 600 or some other size, you can also set your output results to be a given width and a given height. We'll say after the file name, minus W space. Let's make this guy really small and old school. 640 minus H 480. An old VGA image. 1 second, that'll be my right hand up. And so there, it doesn't look like, it's hard to tell from the other images that I did, but that's only a 640 by 480 image. If I try to zoom out on that thing, it's going to get real pixelated real fast. Okay, other good flags. That's it. I just wanted you to get the foundations of this because I also want to be able to get through the recipe view. So you can check out that page for more switches. You can do -H. Some of the switches are explained, some of them not very well, but awesomely cool. All right, Raspberry Vid, some of the same switches as Raspberry Still. Yeah, I spelled that right. You can do -D for demo and -F for full screen, 5 seconds. It looks just like it did with Raspberry Still because Raspberry Still showed you motion when we did that. Let's do a basic capture here. And we'll explain the line as we do. Change that to that. We'll copy paste it. Okay, Raspberry Vid. Now there's always, of course, -- help as well. So Raspberry Vid -O for output. Here's the name of the file that we wanted to create. There are 2 output possibilities available in VidCap, H.264 and MJPEG. The default is H.264. Again, you can use any extension that you want on your file name, but note that the format is going to be H.264. And this time when I do the T after the command in milliseconds, that's how long it's going to capture for. So let's hit the enter key on this thing. You'll see it in full screen as it captures. And for the moment, this is going to actually capture in full screen. So we'll do a hand wave back and forth. 5 seconds is done. Now I've installed VLC on this computer and it's integrated into the file viewer. I know, very Terry, because we're going through 4 different sub things. But when I'm working directly on the Pi, it's nice and clean. And the file that it generates is nice and clean. I should have left that up and running. All right. Cool. So we're not taking screenshots today, right? We're having some cool stuff. Oh, I wanted to tell you the 4 types of still output there is. We did JPEGs. You can also do PNG files. You can do GIFs. That's great for when you're doing time lapse and bitmaps. And all you have to do is add the switch -E GIF or BIMP to the Raspberry Still command line. Not you. You. I know. Pay no attention to that man behind the thing. We can do vertical flip and horizontal flip. We can do a T in front of the file name. That tells us how long to wait before it starts. We can do a T afterward. That tells us how long we want to capture for. If you don't put a T afterward, it will capture until you control C. Time-lapse mode. Let's see, did I do one here? Yes, I did one that I can copy. And there's a couple of different things here, again, to explain. It's kind of cool. So we'll do a time-lapse one on this one and then show you a nice thing that you can do with that. So Raspberry Still minus time-lapse. Take a picture every 1,000 milliseconds and generate it to an output file that has a variable built into it. And it's the %D variable. And the number between says, how many images is this thing going to take before it auto stops? I can do this with Raspberry Still or with Raspberry Vid. Hello, hello, hello. Should use 2 hands up there. Now this is going to make one continuous, oh wait, I'd use Still. If I did that with Raspberry Vid, it would have made a continuous playable 4 images, but we did that with Still. So started out with 0000, and because of that %D in there, it increments each image by 1, by 2, by 3, 4, made a 5th in there, okay? And if you use the variable %C, and there's a bunch of other file name variables, that'll timestamp in the file name. Now I can control the shutter speed on here so we don't get all that fuzziness too. So all the usual things that you can control on a camera, you can control with this utility. How are we doing? 15 minutes to go. Cool. Almost done. Oh, I see what happened. I slid up there. Okay, very good. Must be vid. Okay, it's a basic capture, just like before, -O in the file name. There's our horizontal and vertical flips. When capturing output, okay, this one's kind of cool. You will always see the capture preview while it's happening in full screen. But like the output pictures, we can make the output result smaller. So how about a nice small image? Like this. Okay, raspy still. So I'm going to control the output here, 640 width, 480 height. Capture it for 5 seconds to a file called vidcap01 using H.264 because I haven't changed the format to motion JPEG. So we enter. And I'll fold arms on that one. It's my genie thing. Boing, 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 boing. So see, it shrunk down to 640 by 480, even though we watched the preview in full screen. This happens to VLC on this on a slower computer. It shows it as a still. It's full. To fix it, I got to reboot because I used the wrong computer on this one with a lot of other photo and imagey stuff on there. So sorry about that. Here's an interesting one. I'm not going to hit the enter key on this one, but if we were to do that, it'd be vidcap02. And you can add anywhere before the file name a -K. -K means don't start the count. In fact, if you do -K, then you get rid of, no, you still need that. You do -K, that means don't start the capture until any key is pressed. And then stop the capturing when the letter X is pressed. So I like that one. If you want to change to MJPEG, you add -CD for codec. And the name of the variable is MJPEG. I could call this vidcap1, or if I change the name here to MPG, that'd be fine, right? There's vidcap01.h264, and there's now one called that, but we'll do this for a second. Vidcap02, MPEG. You're not going to be able to tell the difference when we do this. Oops. They're making me change the... Oh, they've changed it. I got the wrong document in front of me. Never mind. It was one I didn't test beforehand. CD space MPEG. Not critical. And I think we're just about at the end. Did that again. That's cool. The last two things to mention are segmentation. If you add to your command line the SG command, followed by number of seconds, let's make this 15 seconds. What it'll do is it will film for 15 seconds, but it will generate 3-second segments, individual files. And that means, of course, you're going to have to use a unique file name system like vidcap, seg, perhaps, underscore percent D's 04D dot H264. And that'll make five 3-second segments. And there's commands in here or switches that you can do. I don't want to start with segment 01. I want to start with segment something else, 35, 350, whatever you like on that. You can also do one other cool thing. There's a million other cool things you can do, but how about I want to, did I copy that? No, that was one of the things I cut out because I wanted to be long. So I don't have it in front of me, but there's a parameter that involves the T parameter that says T and a number, 5 seconds we'll say. And then after the file name, you add another minus T, 2500, comma 5000. And what will happen here is it will make one video that'll be a total of 15 seconds long, but it'll fill 5 seconds and then wait 25 seconds, 2.5 seconds, and then film 5 seconds and then wait and film. So it'll all be put together and edited together. You can also redo that kind of like the segment thing and make them all separated. So ton of flexibility, ton of power here. Raspi vid space minus minus help. Raspi still space minus minus help will give you controls over color and contrast and brightness and shutter speed and f-stop and. There's just oodles of stuff. I could do more. I'm not gonna, because I'm done with that. And that gives us 10 minutes to catch up on questiones. There's a few. Oh, what a sight to see. Okay. Has anyone complimented Dave's shirt yet? No? Good. I have 15 Hawaiian shirts now in rotation. John Lehman, question, have you had a look at Twister OS? Yes. A Pi runnable OS that is a host of software inbuilt and can run many Windows applications. Yes, a lot of people like it. It's got its place. Not for me. If I want to run Windows, I run Windows. If I want to run ARM86 stuff, I run that on Pi. If I want to run Intel stuff, I can either run it in a Linux virtual machine, or I can set up Wine and Box86 on my Pi. But yeah, it's very cool for those people who like it and need it. Alice, you haven't played with Twister? Heck, that came up recently on Discord. Hey, let's post the Discord link one more time. Scott, if you're listening, because we're going to be on Discord here starting in around 10 minutes or so. YouTube channel name, Explaining Computers. Warning, very British. Okay. Laptop cameras too. Sure. I'm new to this, says Michael. Thank you. Scott just posted it at 3:53. So join us on Discord after this, or if you're watching this in the archive, come on in. You can join anytime. We're there. I'm there all the time. A handful of other people are there all the time. You don't have to do cameras and mics, but if you got them, we'll do cameras and mics with you. Otherwise, lots of good places to ask questions and post comments. So, yes, the OS is Linux-based. It is called, used to be called Raspbian because it's a Debian distro fork. It's now called Raspberry Pi OS, and it's a Debian distro that's designed to run on ARM processors. Michael Reyes, do you own a Pi 400? No. I like being able to open up the top and play and touch things. I know you can kind of do that with some of the stuff they got sticking out of the back, but I like the size. Sorry, I'm a compact guy. I don't want to be dragging around a keyboard and all that good stuff. I run these all headless. Very, very seldom do I have a keyboard or a mouse physically attached or even a monitor. So not my cup of mud. Yeah, I mean, it's got its place. It's like everything else. It's great for newbies who want to get introduced into Linux and some cool programming and some cool tools. And they're not tech weenies like me, and they don't want to touch electronics. So it's a good product for them. And do you think the model in the same vein as ZX Spectrum or Commodore Amiga was a wise choice? Not my, that's marketing decisions. I can't speak to that. Sure, time will tell. This is fun, says Andre. You can build your own security cams like this. Yes, absolutely. And again, if you use a decent USB camera, it works fine with USB cameras. You don't use those commands. You use webcam FS, but definitely cool stuff. Thank you, Scott. Oz Rush. That's right. Pay no attention to that man. My joke of the week, NSA stands for Nation State Actor. That was funny. Am I going to catch up? Yeah, it looks like it. 5 more minutes. Okay, I'm speeding through these. Just absorbing the data. Scott post. Oh, I got to the end. Okay, if you find a way, let me know. I need my next certs. And Alex, I'm trying that out using air compressor in my left ear. What's that? Brain. Yeah, but it came out the right ear. All right, let's check notes here. See if there's anything cool that I missed. Next week's topic. We're done with cameras. Open, haven't even begun to look at the list other than some things that I mentioned to you in the past. And nobody ever tells me answers on these. I'm looking for feedback. Otherwise, I'll pick something. Though I did find something really interesting this week. I don't know if I put it in this pile of notes, but we got printers we can talk about. We got OpenHAB. We got Kubernetes. How to install a certificate in Apache. I love that one. That's why you're able to get to HTTPS on my Pi Square server. Different things with Morse code, mounting drives with FS tab. Create your own certificate authority. I just love that one to no end. Pixie booting with Raspberry Pi, installing syslog. Maybe I turn Volumio into something decent step-by-step that's tolerable. Let me take a look real quick at the one that I made notes on. So I got a minute to do here. Options page, drama, feature ideas. Here it is. Have file, go to end. It was the last thing on the list. Oh yeah, a proxy server. Squid. It's built into the RPi OS repository. It's a robust proxy server, supports caching for protocols like HTTP, HTTPS, and FTP, can speed up web requests. So the question comes up all the time in AMAs. I'll do this really fast. What's the difference between a firewall and a proxy server? Well, a proxy server can perform firewall functions, but it has the added ability to be a caching server to speed up access to things that you connect to regularly. Mike on Monday is planning on doing WISP routers. If you're not familiar with WISP routers, WISP, then you'll become familiar with them on Monday, because I don't have the time to tell you about them right now. I got a minute and a half. So I'm going to start winding things down. As always, my thanks to Mike and Scott and Michael Smyers and everybody else at Total Seminars who helps and supports these in various different ways. Scott, absolutely wonderful with information and back channel management while he multitasks. Thank you very much, Mike, for letting me have this time, and lots of other researchers. My thanks ultimately to you. This doesn't happen without you. And if and when it drops low enough, they're going to say, you know what, we don't have that many more people interested in it. We'll kill it. But for now, there is no end in sight. We are going as long as it's allowed. So this has been Dave Rush. I am the senior instructor at Total Seminars and resident Raspberry Pi specialist. And I'm wishing you a great weekend. Take care of each other. Take serious steps to stay healthy. Call or visit your parents and family. And never forget, technology is great, but the greatest resource we have are you and I. Oops, I was all ready to do good night and I didn't have my good night page up. There it is. So good night. Good weekend, everybody.